So good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you this afternoon to our presentation by Sharon McCarthy. The title of the presentation today is Accountability versus Shame and the Process of Recovery. We're hoping Sharon will enlighten us as to the differences between those two terms, and I expect that she will succeed very well. So with that, Sharon, I turn the floor to you and welcome you.
All right, thank you. As you know, my background and experience is in recovery. Today's topic is on accountability, and there is a difference in accountability and shame. So how does one become accountable in their recovery? Well, let's talk about that. We do so by making amends, righting our wrongs, promptly admitting, writing letters to others, apologizing and expressing feelings, changing behavior, do not carry forward old thinking, make peace in all situations as much as possible. This creates harmony. Step up to the plate, admit when wrong, make amends wherever possible. This is not shame, this is accountability. Get involved in activities that build self-esteem, become an ally for someone, volunteer to help in different situations, become a mentor for someone, share your story, be willing to listen, to help, to give back to someone in need. Excuse me. Greet people, smile, and say hello. Do not criticize others and be kind. Do not be judgmental or talk badly of others. Look for the good. Volunteer to help in opportunities that present themselves. Work hard and be proud of your accomplishments. Go the extra mile. Be the best that you can be in whatever you do. These actions are all positive steps that begin to impact the way we feel about ourselves because we are doing no harm. We are promoting well-being in others, which creates harmony, which then impacts our self-esteem. This is what promotes our well-being. Do you see how that works? And then over time, this is what replaces those old memories and negative self-talk. Because now you have new memories of the person that you are becoming, a person who is creating harmony and peace and doing no harm. So consciously and unconsciously, you begin to feel better about yourself. You begin to believe that you are a good person. And you begin to be able to receive goodness in your life and forgive yourself because you believe that you deserve it. Because you know that you are not intentionally causing harm to others or yourself. Today you are walking a different path. You are a different person. A giving heart is a healing heart. Helping others and giving back promotes healing, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Reach out to others that are hurting. As each new day presents itself, a little more understanding and forgiveness will enter your heart. As you begin to rebuild the new you in the things that you say, in the things that you do, in your aspirations and your goals, in how you perceive things, in how you respond to situations, your inner thoughts and feelings begin to shift. This is how you begin to heal and let go of the past and those old memories. The past becomes irrelevant. The old memories eventually fade and are replaced with the new memories of actions that you are taking today that make you proud of yourself. Steps to take to help with the healing process: desensitizing, relaxation and prayer, journaling, support groups, talk therapy, cognitive, breathing exercises, read true life experience and recovery from others, get involved in activities that build self-esteem, reach out to others, and practice doing no harm. Desensitizing by facing feelings and walking through the fear or the denial. Journaling, writing down feelings and emotions of events, circumstances, goals, intentions, wrongs, and hurts. Volunteer in any capacity, helping when needed. It is such an amazing opportunity in life to get to a place that we change our way. We change our thinking, our perspective, our direction. How many people my age, your age, who go through their whole lives and never switch gears? They stay on the same path that is not working for them. And because they will never take the time to be introspective, to ask the hard questions, to take responsibility, to be accountable. To rewrite history, so to speak, to find their way, to contemplate, to do life differently, to grow, to come to a place of understanding and knowledge. So caught up in surviving that they do not have time to research information, to search their hearts, to change their ways, to have an openness to a new way of thinking and believing and looking at life and the world, and the concept of God and recovery. How fortunate we are if we get to a place where we step back and reflect on what we have been told or taught or think we know. To take the steps to gain new knowledge, to relearn tolerance, endurance, acceptance, kindness, a new way of going through life. A whole new way of looking at people, places, situations, and beliefs. Things are not always what they appear, or things are not always what they appear to be, are they? Unfortunately, this is how we become indoctrinated with unhealthy and dysfunctional attitudes about life and experiences. We carry shame from the judgments and opinions of ourselves and others. Excuse me. And these prejudice, judgments, and opinions were not necessarily correct. We begin healing by first embracing our past, who you are, in all its truth, no matter how hard it is to accept. What you did, what life dealt you, or what you chose. The choices you made, accept it. Verbalize your feelings about it. Stop ignoring, denying, covering, minimizing, and blaming. Good, bad, indifferent, whatever, it is your truth. Then take steps to heal your hurts, your guilt, and be accountable. Make amends to yourself first, and then to others. Slowly over time, as you practice the positive steps to change that we have talked about, you will begin to feel and see a difference. That is how healing from our past begins, as each new day presents itself, one day at a time, as they say in program. There is some recommended reading, Healing the Shame That Binds You by John Bradshaw, who was an author and lecturer in recovery. It is a very powerful book, I think, that one can read and get a lot out of. Also, I heard a very interesting quote recently. I heard someone say she was now at a place, getting to a place in life where one is comfortable with being uncomfortable, because life is an amazing journey that just keeps happening. I thought that was very good.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so any comments?
I thought that was wonderful and very, very enlightening, and
Thank you.
It's a lot of spiritualism involved in it. And it's,
I think that's important
yes,
in recovery,
absolutely.
spirituality.
I'd like you to tell me a little bit more about the types of allies that you would consider helpful to a person who's seeking to relinquish shame and achieve accountability. Give me some characteristics of the type of ally that you're thinking about.
When you say allies, what are you talking about? Tools? Are you talking about people?
More about persons. Yeah, when I use that term, I think of a person.
I think it's very important to be around positive people and people who are walking the walk, not just talking the talk, as they say in program, because it's very important.
Yeah.
You know, because if we're around, and as we've talked before in other presentations, if we're around negative energy, it just pulls us down. So in order to get past a lot of, it's really just about, I think, I made a note here too. It's really important, intention. Intention is very important. That doesn't mean we're going to be perfect and we're not going to, lose it occasionally or whatever. But I think our intention from our heart, and that is a spiritual thing, is very important, because that's what keeps us moving forward. When you ask about how we let go of shame, is that what your question is?
It's not really, no, my question was more about the nature of a person who could be my ally if I am experiencing shame and striving to become accountable. Who do I look for? What person do I look for? What are the characteristics of that person that I want to help me?
Someone who is positive in their thinking, and someone who isn't carrying any resentment
baggage
towards
or resentment.
anything in life.
Yeah.
Because if we're carrying baggage and we're carrying resentment, we haven't let go ourselves, right?
Right, exactly. And I like what you said the first time too, that this person has to be walking the walk. They themselves have had to go through this experience and are continuing the journey to accountability.
Exactly.
You know, they're not there yet.
Right.
Nobody ever gets there perfectly.
No.
It's impossible.
No.
It's impossible.
We have to be a saint.
Because every day,
It's
that's
not
right. And even the
possible.
saints didn't necessarily get there
Right.
personally. They were given the accolade of being a saint by somebody else.
Yeah.
But they never, most of them never felt that they had reached sainthood at all in their lifetimes. It's often after they're dead that they become a saint. People become saints. So I think I like that notion of continuation. Now,
I also think sometimes we just have to sit with things and let things settle, you know?
yes.
I don't think
Yeah.
perfection is not something we're going to achieve. And I know you and I have talked about this before, when you're around somebody who's very angry or negative, how hard it is not to respond. And, you know, I think that it's the human condition. That doesn't mean that if we're not always in that place, that we've lost recovery or that we're not doing well. As I say, I think it's intention. So I think a lot of times we're hard on ourselves. So if we can understand that it's if we intend to do no harm and we're around somebody who's just attacking, it's not possible to not get angry and respond with anger and say, you know, I can't deal with this. You know, I don't have the energy for this. And respond angry that one is being attacked. However, we don't want to be the attacker. That's my point.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean?
I do.
So it's like if we're responding in a negative moment to someone who is, you know, in just bombarding us with negativity, that doesn't mean that we're not intending to do no harm. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So I think we have to be careful not to put shame on ourselves and say, oh man, you know, and I know that there were a lot of times in the past where I felt, you know, I lost my temper with someone who was attacking or whatever, and then later I would say, well, you know, why didn't I stay calm? Because maybe that would have, you know, diffused the whole thing. But it's not possible all the time. So then I had to reflect and step back and say, okay, my intention with this person was to create harmony and healing, but this person wasn't allowing it. So, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's a constant renewing of the mind.
Yes.
So till you master it to the utmost degree that level that you can achieve.
Yes.
No one's never going to reach the highest,
No.
but that you continually at least going towards your goal with your intentions. You have that already in your heart. That's what you intend to do. But you know, a lot of times, just like you said, so often, I'm sure we've all experienced it. You know, and then just it comes out wrong, or then you reflect back and you realize, you know, I could have handled this a little bit differently next time, and I'm going to be cognitive of what I say next time, and it might not work again. You know what I'm saying? It's different situations, but you know, as time goes by in situations, you get better. You get better. You know?
And I don't ever want to be the initiator of harm. That's my point.
Exactly.
So I may be sometimes harmed by someone else's actions and then respond to that. So that's human. But I certainly have learned a lot to not respond in many situations. But again, that isn't always possible. We try.
I'm reminded of a situation I was faced with last week, and I was in a very challenging conversation with someone, and I felt myself becoming angry.
Resentful?
And really, not resentful, but just angry with their responses to our conversation, during our conversation. With responses to various questions or points that were being made, and their retorts and things of that nature, and I was becoming angry. I chose, rather than to let my anger become controlling of the situation, to excuse myself momentarily so I could go outside and cool off.
Yes.
And I did. And
removing from the situation,
Yep.
which we've often talked about, yes.
that worked
Very
really
good.
well. It was very positive because I was able to then come back with a different frame of mind and having let that energy go.
Right.
And then I was able to sit down again and start having a more accountable conversation, a more equal and accountable conversation. Another point I want to make is, or another, I guess, observation. One of the things on your list of how accountability and shame differ was do not criticize others, be kind.
Right.
I get that if we only consider criticism to be negative. Okay. Now, so I'd like to discuss or have you respond to, Sharon, is with the understanding that accountability does require some standard, some level of standard.
Yes.
How does one offer the standard or the criticism against the standard in a positive way? How do you think that can be done? And how does that contribute to a person becoming more accountable? You give them what I refer to as constructive criticism. Right?
Kind but firm. And I think that with boundaries,
Okay.
there are boundaries that we have to put in place often. And that's not comfortable either a lot of times for ourselves or for the person that, needs to see that there are boundaries. So that's where a lot of the resistance comes in and a lot of the misunderstanding and misinterpreting of, well, you don't love me because... Well, no, it's not about love. It's about being accountable, and there are certain boundaries in life that we have to adhere to and understand. And some people, especially if they are using, if they are an alcoholic or an addict, or if there's mental illness, do not understand this. And it makes it very difficult for the family members or friends.
It's extremely challenging for families with dementia in it.
Extremely.
Yeah, it's more. I think it's even more challenging than where substance abuse is present. Just because occasionally the substance abuser has a day where they're not intoxicated or they're coherent for a short period of time.
And you can get through.
Yeah, they're lucid for. That's a good word. They're lucid for a period of time. With the dementia patient or the dementia loved one, inevitably there may never be any clarity going forward. Yeah,
and I think a lot of to answer to that, I think a lot of the resentment comes from the neediness.
The neediness?
Neediness. And that also applies to alcoholics, addicts, and someone with dementia or mental illness or whatever. The neediness can just be overpowering. And it's very hard, excuse me, not to get resentful. We have to really, which is why we need to, it takes a village, right? As a former First Lady said, whether, it really does. It takes a village to, we can't do it alone.
Right, right. To raise a child, it takes a village.
To raise a child, it takes a
wasn't
village.
that Reagan's wife?
No, that was Clinton's.
Clinton, that's right,
Hillary Clinton. However, I mean, but it's the same thing.
Yeah, it is the same thing.
Because when you're dealing with addicts, alcoholics, or someone who's mentally ill or dementia, it is constant. And you are raising children. They are still children.
Yeah.
Alzheimer's, that's what they regress.
Yeah, they go backwards.
Back to their childlike behavior, and an addict alcoholic is the same way.
Yeah.
They're very childish, they're very immature, and it's very sad as a family member. Because, and we've talked about this before too, I think that when one starts using, they stay at that age if they become addicted.
Yes.
If they're not socially experiencing social drinking or social smoking or whatever. If they start using marijuana at 15, they never grow up.
Right.
If they start using drugs at 15 and are addicts where it's constant, because there's never any clarity.
Exactly. And there is a developmental delay. And the impact of the
Excuse me.
damage on the brain and the neurologic system is also a factor in all of that.
Because of the lack of
Yeah.
seeing clearly,
Yeah.
and you know, so it's very, very difficult to reach.
I'd like your opinion also, if you, and I'd like to hear from you, Steph, about what you think in terms of the utilization of assertive communication with regards to overcoming shame and accountability. What are your thoughts on that? How does that fit in?
I think there's a big difference between assertiveness and aggression.
Okay.
So I think there's, you know, that has to be differentiated.
Yeah.
I think it's fine to be assertive. That's just taking care of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But not angry. And like you were saying, sometimes we do have to be firm. It's like, no, this is not okay.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't have to get into a shouting match, right?
Exactly. Yep.
So,
And that's what being assertive is.
That's what being
It's a
assertive
calm
is,
statement
absolutely.
using an I word rather
that's
than
right.
a you word.
Rather than a you word.
Yeah, and not pointing a finger at somebody and saying you did this to me, or and that's accusatory. So
And we all know this and forget it.
we all do.
At
That's right.
times
In the
when
heat of
we're
the
in
moment.
situations in the heat of the
Yeah,
moment.
that's
But
very
as
true.
Stephanie was saying before, as time goes on, we get better and better at it. And then we become proud of ourselves because we like the person that we're becoming. This is how we rewrite history. The old memories fade away, the new memories of who we are becoming. Because we are calmer, we are more clear, we are more assertive. Sometimes our anger and our shame has to do with the fact that we haven't been assertive enough.
Right, exactly. We feel disappointed in ourselves.
Yes, because we allowed ourselves to be abused or whatever,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Yes.
we didn't set any boundary.
Didn't set boundaries.
You know, it's nice. What's nice about this whole these discussions that we're having about communication and things like shame and accountability, it's applicable no matter what aspect of your life you're talking about. Whether it's your professional life, your relationship to your colleagues, your relationship to the people you're caring for, whether it's your mother and father, your brother and sister, it doesn't matter. I mean, all these things come up in every context that we exist in.
It's all encompassing.
We can't avoid them no matter what,
I
no
know.
matter where we are. And how we deal with them and how we speak to them and how we manage them is really important. That's why I like these topics to be brought forward, because so many of us don't want to talk about stuff like this. We just think we know it all, and we don't. When we really don't.
No.
We don't.
I know. It's a
What-
lifelong journey.
What's
Exactly.
interesting too is just recent, I think it was yesterday or maybe the day before, I was reading in Time magazine about these scientists who have done some studies on resilience and what makes people more resilient than others. And what it was really boiled down to was nothing more than that they learn how to remain calm under duress.
And that's why I like that quote that I heard that woman say the other
Yeah.
day about, I'm learning to be comfortable with being
Uncomfortable.
Exactly.
That-
And I think that's a great place to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that. And it is such a good feeling to get to that place to know, you know, you're going to have adversity.
Yeah.
There are going to be people who don't like you and you don't like, and it's just trying to a lot of the times, though, that has to do with misperception. There's,
Right.
you know, misunderstanding. Because we all express ourselves differently, and we all have a certain way of speaking. So sometimes we're saying one thing and somebody's taking it a different way, depending. So a lot of that is why there's conflict in the workplace or
Yes.
among families or whatever. It's just communication.
Yeah, this is a
So-
different person. There's a vast variety of an array of personalities. We're all unique.
Yes.
You might think I can make a comment. It depends on the tone, your body language.
Exactly.
That same comment might be a whole different. It's the
You mean it
it's
one way,
delivered.
and they're taking it entirely
Exactly, you
different.
have to-
Because of their background, their experience, what they've been up against, all those things make a
Yes.
difference.
Yeah, you
So
have to have
this-
tact in all areas of your life. With this world is so crazy and going. You have to know how to how to
Detach.
deal with different situations everywhere you go. Gasoline station, wherever. McDonald's would have you work or a social. you have to learn how to say something at the right time, or deliver it. And I'm not the one here to. Surely I'm not the one who has the answers all to it, but I surely think that it's just a ongoing renewing of your mind to fine tune it every day, and I don't know if it's allowed, but God, He says renew your mind every day. He'll show you different things, and children, in different areas of your life. In a bird, generate more love so you can be more positive, and more loving person so that you have something to offer someone. I was a person, I'm not saying hi to you, you never say hi to me, that type of attitude. Then I just came to a place where I feel a lot better. When I'm smiling.
That's right. When
and
you're
I'm
greeting,
talking, if they don't say anything back, hey, that's it. I'm going to stay happy.
That's
right.
As
much as I can. There's a lot of situations that...
And you know what you're doing when you do that? I understand it to be that you are reframing your thinking.
Changing your...
And consequently, what these researchers discovered also was when you reframe your thinking repeatedly, you change the chemistry of your brain, and it results in a new brain developing.
And
you become a more resilient brain.
And your body follows.
Yes,
your
exactly, because the brain is leading the body parts.
Exactly.
That are blowing.
That's the resilience that you're talking about, and that these scientists have discovered, which is why our self-esteem is impacted when we do this. This is what we were talking about, doing no harm. When we do no harm, we start to feel good about ourselves. That is where all of that, the history, the past, falls away. And that's exactly what you were saying, renewing of your mind, changing our thinking.
Yes. The whole goal is to love.
A lot of anxiety disorders and such, a lot of it has to do with thinking. So it's changing your thinking and moving forward with a different perspective, which is where the healing happens.
I believe, too, it's really important what you just said, because many people who struggle emotionally and psychologically don't really know what's wrong with them themselves. They don't know. So they have to seek out a person who's got clarity. Now, that could be the ally that we were talking about earlier. It might just be the next door neighbor that has befriended this person, and they're willing to sit and listen to the person talk.
Yes.
And then they'll give them feedback about what they hear. That might be all they need. But then they may need to go to a professional to really get to the deep, deep matters of concern.
Yes, because if that person is talking and you can be an ally, that's great. But if they're raging and ranting,
that's different.
It's a whole different thing.
It is.
And some people who are ill, and they're in that place, aren't calm enough to be able to have a conversation.
No, and they're dangerous sometimes.
So it's hard for you to be a mentor. And impart a lot of these things that we've come to understand, which is very frustrating when you love someone and you're trying to help someone in that. And that happens to a lot of families. So yes, professionals.
Go ahead. Out of my 30-some-odd years of being a caregiver, my favorite question to ask someone upward in 90-year-old is, how did you get to be that age?
That's a good question.
Yeah. What did you do to bring you here?
Yeah. I said, how did you get that age? And the senses are overwhelming with this answer. Don't worry about anything. That worried for itself.
Let go and let go.
Don't worry about anything. Just enjoy your life. That's the main answer I always get. It's always oncoming, the same one, and they're the most vibrant looking people. I've noticed that, and that whole persona, everything. Although they're in, you may be in a nursing home or whatever. I don't know what the circumstances may lead them to, but they have a bright, the whole countenance looks really more vibrant and more. They're just a more upbeat person, although they're
resilient.
And they're free. They're free.
Yeah.
They don't carry a load of baggage with them when they're walking around. With sometimes you see people and their face is downcast. They won't look you in the eye. You know, or they walk down the street and their head is down. They don't look around at anybody.
So what do you think is happening when a person looks like that? Do you know what I think?
What do you think?
Their self-talk is so negative that they are just beating up on themselves all the time.
Well, I'm sure the world helps them out.
And I'm sure the world helps them out.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes the world helps by simply ignoring them.
Yeah, exactly.
They disregard them,
Absolutely.
and the disregard contributes to the feelings of despondency. They don't feel like anybody cares.
Yeah.
And this is particularly true of many homeless people. They become unseen. They're the unseen scene, or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
The invisible.
They're invisible even though they're right in front of you.
Yeah, although this is not on, this TLC is not on their typical flow sheet, but it sure should be on there because I have to, you know what I mean? I have to give that to.
Yeah.
You can't just walk in, Mr. Smith, and just start pulling on him and
No, of
changing
course
his
not.
pamper. And
course
you
not.
have to let
So
him know
Of course
that he's a human being.
Yeah.
And I want to know how you doing today.
Yeah.
You know, what do you like?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna just pull out the clothes out of a closet if they just have two pairs. Man, which one do you want to wear? You know, oh, you look great.
So in those
you have to
actions-
give that to
Absolutely.
to a person
Absolutely.
all the time. You know, it's just a matter of you know how would you feel? You know what I'm saying? If you were in the same situation, how'd I want to feel?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And in
I
all of
wouldn't
those
be-
actions, you're doing no harm.
Yeah.
Emotionally, physically, spiritually, that person is feeling embraced
Yeah.
because you're showing respect.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what we mean when we
Yeah.
say do no harm in all of our actions.
Yeah.
You know? And you said something very interesting, that when you are taking care of someone who's 90 and you ask the question, and it's always the same of the people who are smiling
Most
and
of
get
it.
to that age.
Most
A lot of that has to do with one of the topics that we talked about before was forgiveness, which is really about letting go.
Yeah.
So when you let go and you forgive,
Mhm.
you're not worrying about anything.
Yeah.
You know, it's all past, it's history. We're rewriting new history from today forward. So those are all the things that absolutely make a difference. And
agree
that's
with that.
interesting.
Wholeheartedly, because every time I can reflect on my life, every time I really was worried about something where it prevented me from going to sleep, you know, look at what's going to happen, and it always worked out anyway. So I wasted sleep, and I mean, you know what I mean, and it just caused more anxiety in you and everything. Just let it go. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that. You know, if it's a bottle of gasoline and some candles all over it, that's of course of a different color. You know what I mean? It's something to address it quickly, you know what I mean? But as far as, you know, little minute stuff, I don't know how I pay my cable bill today, or Johnny, you know, things of that, you know, little stuff that's really, you could let that go and spend it on in a different, you know, utilize your time, because it's so short. This is what I think of to enjoy your life. And just start counting all of the blessings that you have. I mean, hey, you go in a room and you say, you know, 40-year-old person, and you know, broken. It's something that's irreparable, and it's not going to be healed anytime soon. Let's just put it like that. You could go through 100 different situations, and you have to count your blessings.
Life
and,
just keeps happening.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Just be thankful to for what you have all the time.
And grateful, yeah.
I think this is very interesting. I love it.
Thank you.
Well, both of you guys are really cool.
Well, thank you for your input. That's very nice.
It is. It's
And
good
I
to have. It's
appreciate
good
all
to
the
have
things that
a
you've
collective
said.
mind when we think about these things, because we all face them. There's none of us that are any better than each other. You know, we all face the same pains, the same troubles in life, and it is really about what attitude we have towards them and the freedom we have to let them go. You know, it is. I also want to speak a little bit about my experience with becoming aware that when I became a different person, because there was some periods in my life where I was really lost.
How old were you?
Well, I think I started to lose myself, or lose touch with my what's the word I want? with my roots
Okay.
when I was about 15.
Mm-hmm.
I was walking this fence of trying to be independent, but not wanting to be.
Yeah.
And I was walking the fence of being an egotistical maniac, self-centered on himself, but also wanting to care about other people.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, you know, the dichotomy of being an adolescent.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got into my 20s, and after coming back from military service, and
How old were you when you went into the military?
I was 20. I came home when I was 22.
Okay.
Because I ended up with a medical discharge. But when I came home, I was in a place where I had very little faith in anything. It was all about me. And I came home, and a year after I got home, I got married. I did get into nursing school then, and went to started at UVM in my nurses training. But for the years between the age of 20 and 30, I was on a spiritual island by myself, struggling with
You
trying
had
to
no
find
faith in anything.
trying to find who I was spiritually.
Okay.
And I didn't have any faith. I left what I grew up with as a religious faith because I no longer believed in it. You know, at least I didn't believe in the fundamentals of the church. I believed in God and I believed in Jesus Christ, but I didn't believe in the fundamentals of the church.
I get that.
So I left. And anyway, I was on this journey, and it wasn't until I was like 42 years old when I had an aha awakening that I realized that I was a different person. And I needed to change. I needed to do something other than what I was doing.
What caused your aha moment?
A collection of I arrived at a place where all things were bearing down on me.
Were you
I
using during
was
those
using
years?
I was using drugs and alcohol. I was working full time at a job where I knew I was on the verge of losing my job because I was becoming affected by my chemical use.
Yeah, of course.
I was totally despondent from the standpoint. I was totally dispirited from the standpoint of having any faith in anything.
Having a lot of anxiety?
Not
At
so much
that time?
anxiety. I wasn't anxiety provoked, but I was not happy. I was emotionally disgruntled all the time, no matter what situation I was in. So I looked at myself one day in the mirror, and I just realized after all the years of education I had, and I was sharing with Stephanie that I had spent many years studying about substance abuse and actually helping others to overcome it. But there I was,
And still using.
at 42 years old, still using and immersed in it myself, which was a very strange dichotomy of life,
No,
a paradox
a lot
of
of people are drawn
life.
to that, though, for that reason.
Yes, and I think I was searching for something for myself, and
To
at
the
the same
field.
time,
Yeah.
you know, it became an opportunity for me to make a living and go forward with it. And I did help a lot of people. I have to say that
Yeah.
genuinely. I know I did.
Because you could identify.
Right. So here I was at 42, and I picked up this. I looked in the mirror and I just said, Alan, with what you know and where you are at this point in your life, you need to do something other than what you're doing. You gotta stop doing something first. And so I picked the use of chemicals as my first stop. And I just decided I'm going to do it. I'm going to stop. And I did. And I went to therapy, and I went through program, and I spent many years recovering. And I finally reached the place after 8 years in recovery where I found Jesus again. I have to say that. My return to my spiritual center was absolutely critical to my recovery. So
It is.
when I found my new spiritual life, because actually I know today that alcoholism and drug abuse at its core is a spiritual disorder.
Absolutely.
It
It's a
has all the other
spiritual sickness.
ramifications
It is.
are tied with it, physical
Addiction
and
is a
otherwise,
spiritual
social and all that
sickness.
stuff, but it
Yes.
begins with spiritual
Yes.
despair.
The void.
Yeah, you
Yes.
discard what is most central to
Yes.
your core, and you just let it go somewhere,
I
either
agree.
put it in a box or it drifts away from you.
You become split.
You leave it. You leave it. So that's what I did. I just walked away from it and turned my back on it. Once I returned, and realized that this is where I needed to be. I needed to be spiritually centered, and I started to develop in that way. And I grew forward in that way. You know, now it's been over almost 25 years since I've even considered taking a drink or a drug. And 6 months after I stopped drinking, I stopped smoking cigarettes on top of it. So, you know, again, I share all this without any hesitation because it's the reality of where I was.
It's important.
But it's that what I really was trying to say in all of this is that not everyone realizes immediately where they are or what they need or how to get where they need to go. And sometimes it does take the aha awakening for someone to cross over to the better side. And we can't no one can push a person into that.
No.
You can't be pushed.
But we can have mentors.
We can have encouragement.
And if we're fortunate enough to have a mentor in our life, then I think that it helps us to get over that.
I believe that's true. And that's again where this presentation about looking for that ally, that person that mentors you, is really important.
It's very important. And it's hard to find, you know. And
Very.
I wish I could help everybody that I come in contact with, but it's just not possible. And, you know, especially the homeless in this city. That's something that I think we really need to look at, like I've said before.
Right.
So if I had the money, I'd do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are a lot of people hurting, and it's very important to have that. But a lot of people will also go through their whole life and never have that moment. That's what I was saying in my presentation, that how many people your age, my age, go through their whole life and never step back and reflect, like you did, Alan, or like we all have, obviously, at some point in our lives. And you know, some people choose that. They choose not to have that switch in thinking, to go through their whole life, and then they're not going to make it to 90 and be those people that you're able to say, now, how did you do that?
That's true.
But
I mean, there are rare persons in the world who smoke cigars or smoke cigarettes right up until their 100th birthday, when then they die, or they drink right up until their 106th birthday and then they die. But those people are exceptional. They're not the norm by any way, shape, or form.
my husband had an aunt who smoked. Actually, she's still living. She's 103, and she would smoke during the day, but she'd only have like 3 cigarettes, and then she'd take cough medicine at the end of the day. You know, to help, for whatever reason, that was her ritual. You know, that was how she dealt with it and handled it. But, you know, healthy and no problems.
Again, the mind and your
she never
your
married,
attitude.
though. She never had a husband or children. She was single her whole life.
Probably alleviated a lot of stress from that.
I have one last thought that I'd like to offer, and that is that I believe when we are looking at ways to help others, we need to be really careful to pay attention to what our own personal boundaries are in that respect.
Yes.
Because sometimes we can do more harm than good in trying to help another person.
Okay, elaborate on that.
If I make the other person's goals my goals and not theirs goals, then I might end up causing that person to do something that they shouldn't do or may not want to do because it could harm them, or they might resist. And I don't understand why they're resisting, because I think it's a great idea because it's my goal.
Yes, your goal.
Or you think it would have worked for you.
Yeah.
Right. So
but your intention there is to help.
It is to help, and the heart is in the right place.
Yes.
But what I'm suggesting is we have to just think about what is the other person wanting at this moment. Maybe it isn't exactly what I want. And so therefore, what can I do within that restriction? Is there anything I can do? Maybe there isn't. Maybe that's a time when I just say, okay, I'm not even going to try it at this moment. I'm going to let it go.
Maybe sometimes we just have to step back and let things settle.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
To ask you something.
Yes, exactly.
After you put it on the table, and then it's nothing, you know.
I've had that so many times in caregiving. You must have too, Stephanie, by now.
Yeah.
After 30 years, where you go into a client's room and you think you're going to get them to accomplish what it is that you're in there for, and they make it quite clear to you that you're not going to accomplish anything.
Yeah.
You know, and do you stand there and try to fight with them and persuade them? No, you don't. The best way to do it is to just leave, give them space, and come back again and try later.
There you go.
Right? But that takes a little while for caregivers to learn how to do, tactfully.
Yeah.
Or anyone.
Without leaving the person feeling like, you know, you're angry at them or that you're disappointed
them,
or you're abandoning them. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's kind of what I was referring to as knowing our boundaries. Know how far you can go before you need to stop.
Right.
You know, so you don't cause the other person
Although
to be
your
uncomfortable.
intentions are good,
Yeah.
you have to know what
Yeah.
exactly what you're saying, boundaries.
Yeah.
Right, and forced solutions never work, whether we're talking about caregiving or, you know, trying to help someone who's an addict or an alcoholic, or the mentally ill. Forced solutions do not work. So
No, they don't.
we have to step back and take care of ourselves too, first.
Yeah.
Because if we don't take care of ourselves, we're no good to others, obviously. And very important, boundaries, Alan, like you were saying. We have to have those boundaries and be assertive, not aggressive,
Right.
but assertive.
Right.
Kind but firm, you know, all those things that we learn. We don't know that in the beginning. We learn this as time over time through our own recovery through life. So,
That's very true.
Yeah.
So I guess in closing today, I'd like to suggest a very important message to our listeners and our viewers of this video, that it is okay to reach out for support when you are feeling shamed or you are feeling the need to change what's happening to you. It's important to look for the right person.
It is.
And that's really important.
Yes,
to
mentors
shop
are
around
very
if you have to
Yes.
find the right person, not to just take anybody who's standing in front of you and assuming they're going to help you.
And that's an important point. Because like you say, there are some people who can do more harm than good. So it is very
Right.
important for it to be a good fit.
Yes,
I agree.
yes. And whether that be a good friend fit or a good professional fit,
Yes.
one way or the other, it's okay to search around until you really believe that that person that is in front of you can help you and is the right person for
Right.
you. And then the last point, I guess, that I get from today is we all are in the process of changing continuously.
Continuously.
None of us will ever stand still.
We don't graduate.
No, we don't graduate. And those of us who have achieved a successful transition to a better condition, it is our responsibility to let other people know that we have that experience and that we're willing to share it with them.
Right.
And that's why I don't hesitate to have expressed what I have
Yes,
today in
yes.
this context, because I'm okay with who I am today as a person. I am who I am because of what I went through.
I agree, and I feel the same way. And I think it's very important for us to
Ditto.
share our stories.
Yeah,
Very important,
Yes.
because this is what gives strength.
yeah. Because I'm not ashamed anymore.
No,
At
exactly.
all,
Me
at
too.
all. I'm not ashamed.
Exactly.
Not of my past. I
We've
mean,
become
sometimes I'm
proud
ashamed of
of
what I do
ourselves.
anyway. But
For the changes that we've made.
Yes, yes.
And that is what,
Yes.
that's what being accountable is
yeah,
all
I've
about.
reached accountability. I'm accountable now.
Exactly. And also, I think one of the other points is that reference that I made to that quote that I heard, which I thought was actually very powerful. Getting to a point in our lives where we are comfortable with being uncomfortable. Because once we get to that place, we're able to understand that this is life, this is how it goes, and we know that it's a learning process, and we're continuing and moving on and doing the best that we can to do no harm, period, in life.
Sharon,
To ourselves or others.
that's right.
Yeah,
To ourselves and others.
to ourselves.
We are just as important as the other person.
Exactly. Yes.
I want to thank you, Sharon, for coming today
Thank you.
and introducing us to these ideas in the very concise way that you did. And I think our follow-up discussion among the three of us here has been a good one. And I hope that the people who view this video on TLC Academy will take away from it some positive ideas and some understanding of the differences between shame and accountability.
Exactly.
With that said, thank you again.
Thank you too.